In Full Zoom is presented to you by Calvo Enterprises, Inc.
Afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another edition of In Full Zoom. I'm Nestor Licanto, and this week we're going to talk a little bit about drones. We're going to depart from the commercial side that we normally focus on and talk a little bit more about the research and a tie-up between the University of Guam and NASA. And our guests this week are from NASA. We have Dr. Romina King, who is the Associate Director of the NASA Guam Space Grant and NASA Guam EPSCoR, and Dr. Leslie Aquino, who is the Executive Director of NASA Guam EPSCoR. And thanks, first of all, for joining us, ladies. and
Thank you.
And the hand there.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you for having us. We're so happy to talk about NASA and our research and our work.
Yes. And the joys of filming from
Okay.
home. Yeah.
All right. First of all, and let me start with you, Dr. King. Can you explain a little bit about what the UOG Drone Core is and the certification and training program?
So the UOG Drone Core is a program that is jointly funded by NASA Space Grant and NASA Guam EPSCoR. And what we are aiming to do is train a cadre of students, graduate and undergraduate students, on the best practices on how to fly a UAV and help them get FAA certified. So that way they have that license as part of their professional development. And we'd like to also provide some modules, training modules, where they can actually practice flying a variety of drones, maybe for different kinds of missions. And ideally, after they get their FAA license, they would be obligated to fly about 80 hours for the year for us on a variety of missions. So say like we have a researcher who really wants imagery of maybe one of their research stations or their field sites, they can give us a call and we can send out one of our licensed students to get sort of that bird's eye view that they're looking for. And also we hope to help out the local government agencies like Department of Ag and Coastal Management Program and EPA. In case they need some imagery taken, they can give us a call and we can send out a licensed pilot or two to get the imagery that they want and send it to them.
And Dr. Aquino, Dr. King just mentioned UAV. I'm assuming that means unattended vehicle, or what is that, and how did NASA get involved in drones?
Unmanned aerial vehicle.
There you go.
So I think, right, so there's a long history of unmanned aerial vehicles. My background, prior to the university was working for the government. And so, Department of Defense uses these a lot, but I believe for NASA, it kind of came about as a natural way to try and gain imagery that doesn't have to be so far up, right? Normally their imagery is satellite imagery. So then with the advent of drone technology, you're now able to get imagery from closer to Earth and with a variety of different types of sensors. So Dr. King has done some projects with students involving things like thermal infrared sensors, right? So you can capture that type of imagery from drones and get very nice images of Guam, actually. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah. Talk about the role of the FAA certified pilots. How does that work?
So to get your remote pilot certificate, you need to take an airman's knowledge test. So you actually don't even have to ever fly a UAV to get this pilot certificate. It's basically an examination by the FAA to make sure that you are aware of all the rules and regulations that you have to follow when you're operating a small UAV. So you register. You get a test date, you take the exam, and then you get your certificate, and then that is tagged to your specific registration number when you sign up for the test. And that registration number stays with you, so that way you're in a database, like an FAA database, that says, okay, this person, license number, blah, 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 has passed their, has their remote pilot certificate.
Yeah. And Dr. Aquino, I imagine that has to do with safety and security. Can you elaborate?
Oh, absolutely. Right. So there's going to be some cases, with your small little personal drones, there's no need for certifications. But once you start to get to larger drones and you want to fly into certain areas, there's restrictions naturally close to the airport, flying over water's okay, depending on your risk, but anything like flying over government land, we need special permits. And I believe Romina can correct me, but I believe it's based on this maybe size and mission, size of the drone and your mission that you want to do. So
yeah, and imagine, because at this particular point we're not overwhelmed by drones. There's not drones flying all over the place.
Right.
But it's conceivable that we will reach a point where there will be a lot of drone traffic up there somewhere, and maybe people who have nefarious intents with their drones. So that's
Yes.
probably another reason for to get the FAA involved in this from the get-go, I imagine.
Sure. And you should also, if you're to get a drone registration number. So when you get a drone, it's best practice to register that drone on the FAA website, and they actually send you a number and you have to affix that number onto your drone. So any of the drones operated by UOG, most of the drones operated by UOG have that number to it. So that way, in case that UAV is ever in an accident, it can be identified, and they can do the investigation to see who is flying it and if they were licensed or not. So yes, you're right. At the moment, we aren't so saturated with UAVs, but I suspect that's going to change real soon with the technology becoming way more affordable and fairly user friendly.
Yeah, and this drone program, as I understand it, opens the door for some unique research opportunities.
Oh yeah, absolutely. At the moment, where I'm involved in a NASA a couple NASA projects where we are trying to map the coral reefs of Guam from the air using unmanned aerial vehicles or drones. And the other project I'm involved with is sort of mapping freshwater discharge from the northern Guam Lens aquifer using unmanned aerial vehicles and a thermal infrared sensor. So I think a lot of the current and ongoing research now could be augmented with UAVs and getting that kind of imagery. Like, I mean, you can take a picture of like maybe a site, maybe you're interested in like mangroves or something, and you can take a picture of the mangroves over time, maybe like twice a year, to see if there's change. So it's also good for monitoring. You can monitor larger areas, like think about if you were monitoring that same mangrove on foot, right? Versus throwing a UAV up there, and then you can see so much more than you could in the mangrove.
In Full Zoom is presented to you by Calvo Enterprises, Inc. GU Self-Storage, conveniently located near the Harmon McDonald's. We offer affordable rates, online payments, and auto bill pay for your convenience. Plus gate access daily from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. Call us today at 648-7867 for more information. In Full Zoom is presented to you by Calvo Enterprises, Inc.
Yeah, I remember, I think it was last year when there were some NASA folks that had come over and brought a drone, and you did a little bit of an exercise over in was it East Agania, the beach side?
PD.
Okay, right.
PD fisheye. Yes, that was part of the coral reef mapping
that
project.
was her.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes, that was part of the coral reef mapping project. We had scientists come out from the Laboratory of Advanced Sensing from NASA Ames, and they brought out their UAV. It was a huge DJI, I think Matrice 600. And we used that machine, and they outfitted it with some custom NASA sensors that they had invented themselves, and also a camera to map the coral reefs, the priority coral reefs. And the priority coral reefs were identified as Tuman Marine Protected Area and PD Fisheye, not PD Fisheye, PD Marine Preserve.
Yeah, and Dr. Aquino, can you elaborate on how's that come along? I mean, what is the information that you've gleaned so far from that, and how helpful has it been?
That's been extremely helpful. So that project it's continuing, and they've, being able to combine the imagery obtained from those drones together with the other imagery that is part of that project, and this new technology that Dr. King's collaborator with NASA Ames, Dr. Ved Sharayath, they're doing something called fluid lensing, and this is going to be awesome because it's allowing us to be able to see through the waves, right? That's the layman's term. That's the math person's term for understanding what they're doing, right? So I know a lot of math, but the fluid lensing, right? I still got to wrap my head around how it gets done. And so they're able to take all these different images and be able to correct for the distortion as the images are obtained of the reefs through the water, right? So we know when we take a look at the reefs through the water, we kind of see that distortion. And so the goal of this project is to remove that. And they're doing an awesome job. They're supposed to come out again, I think later in May, and for the next round. And there's ways for citizens to participate in helping to classify what's been observed through this project. That's called NemoNet. I'll put that plug in there. So it's really exciting, and there's a lot of ways for people to get involved as citizens and to kind of, I think we're all excited to see the results when the project continues and hopefully expands beyond those two first priority sites.
Yeah, obviously the Reef project is a very important one, but what are some other specific projects, maybe of a more relatable or practical type that you're working on or could possibly be starting soon?
The other project that we're working on is we're working with the Water and Environmental Research Institute of the Western Pacific. I think you guys know them as WERI. And we are looking at freshwater discharge from the Northern Guam Lens Aquifer. So that aquifer discharges along the coast as like springs or seeps. So like if you've ever been in Tuman and you've been walking in the water and you kind of feel like this coldness come out of like nowhere, that's probably fresh water coming up as a seep or a spring right there. So what we're trying to do is map the spatial extent of that colder fresh water. And the sensor that we use for that is a thermal infrared camera, because the fresh water is colder than the warmer seawater. So with thermal, you can see that temperature difference, and you can see the delineation of that fresh water coming off the aquifer, and understanding better understanding that discharge can really help water managers as well as our WERI scientists.
Yeah. And Dr. Aquino, Dr. Kim mentioned WERI, but are there other agencies that might be interested, and how do they enlist your services?
So I think the other agencies, so I'm looking at Romina because she's so involved with a lot of these other agencies as our geographer and GIS person. So places like USGS, Coastal Resource Management, NOAA, Department of Interior. Who else am I forgetting? USDA, I think, right? Fish and Wildlife. So there's a bunch of different government agencies here the biggest one, US EPA. Right? So they're all involved in some of this work in some way, and they reach out to the university and people, right? Romina and her students assist with some, any of their GIS type of requests. So that would be your Geographic Information System, GIS type of request, to obtain this type of data. Maybe it's just, something as simple as help us map this region that's too hard to do by foot, right? Yeah. Or too hard to access.
Yeah. And adding to that too, one government agency like the Bureau of Statistics and Plans, they reached out to us.
They're a big part of the drone program, by the way. Thank you for reminding me. They are a big part of this.
Send it to you via.
Yeah, sorry, I wasn't receiving.
So yes, the Bureau of Statistics and Plans, they also contacted us, and we're partnering with them to also help out with drone certification. I think for firefighters that want to use it more for like emergency and rescue type missions. So they may not be interested in mapping, trees or coral, but maybe they want to look at, a burning building and kind of assess the best way to enter it. Or maybe it's a situation where they have to like rescue, then, those additional eyes might help them plan their rescue attempt better.
In Full Zoom is presented to you by Calvo Enterprises, Inc. GU Self-Storage, conveniently located near the Harmon McDonald's. We offer affordable rates, online payments, and auto bill pay for your convenience. Plus gate access daily from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. Call us today at 648-7867 for more information. In Full Zoom is presented to you by Calvo Enterprises, Inc.
Yeah, so as the fire department has its own kind of unique uses for it, how about the commercial applications? Because I know you deal mostly with other government agencies, but talk about the commercial applications for drones, because we did have Art Dolly, I don't know if you know him, of his company is Aviation Concepts, and they started a drone program on Guam, I think, in the past year or two, commercially. What are your thoughts on the eventual commercial, expansion of drone services for Guam?
Oh, I think that's great. And if they're licensed and they know the rules and it's done in a safe way, I think that's wonderful. And we look forward to partnering with some of those commercial businesses. Hopefully our drone program can create future employees for those very businesses to employ. That would be great.
Yeah.
No, absolutely.
Dr.
I think that, I think that would also be great. It's kind of right now it's kind of like a niche industry, but I think, as we get more people certified and trained, I think the commercial aspect of it is, there's a lot of different things, and it's just, what can they imagine? What would they need a drone operator to help them with, right? So.
Yeah. So with the training and a certification program, is there a limit to the number of students you're accepting? And how does one, become part of the program? And who are you looking for? Students, old people like me, or can anyone just join?
For this first round, we're looking for students of UOG, graduate students or undergraduate students. So we've had to tell some people to wait if they haven't enrolled at UOG yet, or if they've just graduated, we've had to tell them, I'm sorry.
I know. Yeah, no, we've had just such an overwhelming response. I think we originally budgeted like 12 or 15, and I was like, gosh, I hope we get that many. And then all of a sudden my inbox exploded, and I think we're up to 75 interested eligible students. So Dr. Aquino and I actually have to sit down next week and rethink our original plan for the program in terms of logistics. Like, we break them up into cohorts. We might have to find some additional funding to fund some of them because again, it exceeded our expectations, which is a good thing. It's a great thing. And, we're just pivoting and adapting to this wonderful response. And we are looking to accommodate all eligible applicants at this point. Yeah. And ideally, we'd love to open it up to non-UOG students. That would be great. But at this point in time, it's a brand new program. We are concentrated just on UOG students, graduate and undergraduate.
Yeah, and tell us a little bit about the equipment that you use. I imagine that you provide the drones for them to train on and certify on. Tell us a little bit about the equipment.
So Yeah. Well, let me just start. So if they already have a drone that they'd like to get practice with, they're welcome to bring that, and that's a natural thing for them to train on. If they're a UOG student, part of another research project that has a drone, then they can practice on that one. And then we'll try to assess for people who have no experience, no drones in their, tuck away in their closet or at home. Then for those other students, then we'll have to assess how many we have, and then kind of take a look at the drones that we have and try to match people up with the appropriate sized thing appropriately. So some of these are pretty expensive, so we want to kind of ramp up their training before we put them on our expensive ones. So we may also be looking at purchasing some of the maybe mid-range, entry-level type of drones for students. But
yeah, I imagine you don't want the expensive drone crashing into the earth.
No, we don't want that. So the newbies, people who have no drone experience, they'll probably be starting out with something small, like the DJI Phantoms, or like a Phantom 2 or Phantom 3, where if they crash that, it's not a big deal. And then when they get more comfortable and more experience, then we can definitely move them up to more of our industrial workhorses, like the DJI Matrice, like 200. So yeah, and as Dr. Aquino said, it looks like with the popularity of this program, we may have to invest in a couple of entry-level UAVs, mid to entry.
In Full Zoom is presented to you by Calvo Enterprises, Inc. GU Self-Storage, conveniently located near the Harmon McDonald's. We offer affordable rates, online payments, and auto bill pay for your convenience. Plus gate access daily from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. Call us today at 648-7867 for more information. In Full Zoom is presented to you by Calvo Enterprises, Inc.
In talking with some of the interested students, what attracts them to the drones, other than it simulates their childhood playing on the internet machines, or it's kind of a natural progression?
Drones are cool, right? They're just like flying machines in the air that you control. Who doesn't love drones? Yeah. So,
I think it's mostly an extension of that remote control toy they had as kids. But now they can do cool things, and it's work, right? Or it's school.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I mean, I still have a joy in seeing, drones go up in the air, and I'm like, oh, neat, who doesn't really? Who doesn't? And we offered a workshop pre-COVID on how to build drones. So we did a drone workshop that kind of showed students how they could build their own drones using Lego bricks, and then as you graduate from the Lego bricks, then you apply that knowledge to like metal parts instead. So we focused on sort of like the building, how to build drones, how to program them, and now we're focusing on the pilot side of it. So flying the drones, and I think that generates a lot of excitement in people. Fear and excitement, which is kind of fun, right?
Absolutely. And what is the future of drones? I know like Amazon and other of those big box operations are experimenting with delivery of products and purchases to your doorstep, literally. What do you see as the future of drones?
I heard that's happening, but I haven't seen it happen. I mean, that's pretty cool, to order something and then a drone picks it up and drops it at your house. And I'm sure the postal service or people in the post office will be happy not to deal with so many packages. But I think the drones will be used. I mean, there are just so many applications for them, like agriculture, for instance. Our farmers can start using these drones to monitor their fields to see if there are any pests or fungus or anything like that. There's just such a variety of sensors that you can put on these drones, right? So depending on what the question is, what are you looking for? So yes, and then there's archaeological applications as well. You can mount a LiDAR sensor onto a drone, and you could take, generate a point cloud of a site to kind of see if maybe there are historical or cultural remnants of interest in that particular area, right? So the biologists and scientists are using it. I do believe Dr. Aubrey Moore is using drones to look at rhinoceros beetle infestation for some of the coconut trees here too. So, and I believe Sea Grant and Center for Island Sustainability, they're also looking at the use of drones to plant seeds to reforest watersheds as well. And the Department of Ag would love to use drones maybe to look at, say, the impacts of wildfire. So after a wildfire happens, then, you have all the char, and by taking pictures with the UV, you can map the extent of that and kind of get an area and monitor that too over time. So there's just such an infinite application, so many applications that you can use with them. And then also the arts. I feel like I always ignore the arts, but I don't want to. And the photographers, the filmmakers, all of them have been using drones to kind of get these like beautiful swooping shots. I remember for the Marianas Historical Conference, we got called up and asked if we could take imagery for them for the conference, and we said, sure, no problem, right? And we're all trained to map things, right? Like just map things, and so taking these artistic shots were so challenging. We're like, wait, you wanted that low? Okay, and so that was really cool. That was a new experience for me. So in addition to the sciences, I think that the arts would also benefit from UAVs. I mean, they're used in movies all the time too to get those cool,
Absolutely,
hard to reach shots.
All right, we're actually out of time. We had so much fun. Hey, thank you very much,
Oh my gosh, that was so fast.
It was. Dr. Romina King and Dr. Leslie Aquino of NASA, and best of luck on the UOG Drone Core program. I'm Nestor Licanto. Thanks for watching, everyone. We'll see you again next week on In Full Zoom.
Thank you for having us.
In Full Zoom is presented to you by Calvo Enterprises, Inc.